So we started a new series last week called Jesus and We. One of the statements that has been a statement we like to say around here at Journey is life is better together. We say that a lot. Like life is better together. And I don't think I really have to convince you of that. I think most people believe that life is better with other people in your world, right? It just makes sense to have friends or to have people with you in this journey we call life. So I don't know that I have to convince you of that. I might have to convince you that more people in your world is better. Some of you probably have some relatives you're thinking you want to distance yourself, or friends or neighbors or coworkers. So maybe I have to convince you about certain people, but I don't think I have to convince you that life is better together. Last week we started talking, though. I said there's this thing that's evolving in our culture, and there is no theology against it. So I'm going to say that right up front. There is no theology against what I'm about to say, and that is that more and more people are living alone. There is no theology that says you have to live under a roof with another person, right? So don't let anybody say that to you. But solo living tends to be one of these things that happens for a season, right? For most of us. But here's the problem. We are extending solo living into a thing I called last week called the solo life. That we're getting so protective of our lives, of keeping other people out, that we're not doing life together anymore. So when we say life is better together, we may say that, but if we're not doing life together, then we're doing this solo life thing, and there is no solo life in the kingdom of God. It just doesn't work that way. So we started looking at some things last week. We talked about Paul. Paul likes to talk about all these people in this thing called the church, all of us. He likes to talk how God has gifted different people with different things, and you put that together, and he did that so that we could build each other up, so that we could grow in Christ together. And so we made this statement, and I'm going to put it back up there because I don't know that we put it up last week, the slide. I don't know that I hit it at the end. Somebody caught me and said, hey, I didn't fill out all the blanks last week. And I said, you're right, my fault, my bad. So if you can go home now, if you still have your bulletin from last week, you can actually fill in the blanks from last week. You'll feel a lot better about life, I'm sure. But here's the statement where I wanted to land the plane last week, and it was this, that we is better than me to promote the, watch this, single pursuit of Jesus over personal preferences. That when you do life together, we is better than me because it takes that kind of ministry. It takes people speaking into your life, into your world, encouraging you, coaxing you along, convincing you of things. Look, we're not trying to convince you of things that don't exist. We're trying to do life together so that we can become the people we were meant to be. We're trying to become the kind of people God created us to be. And that doesn't mean we all look alike, right? We're not all uniform. We're just unified in our understanding of who Jesus is. And he wants us to be the kind of people that he created us to be. But too many times our personal preferences take priority over everything else, right? If we're brutally honest, our personal preferences come into play, and then what goes out the window first? The things God is asking us to do, right? I mean, let's be brutally honest, okay? There are not many mornings left in a work week in America or in a standard 7-day week where you get the chance to lay in bed late. So to get up on a Sunday and go to a church gathering means you're sacrificing maybe possibly one of the only days during the week where you might be able to lay in bed and sleep late. So it's real easy on a cold winter morning with a little bit of rain outside. Now, tomorrow morning, hey, you listen, you didn't achieve anything this morning. Tomorrow morning, if you go to work, right, you're going to feel cold because tomorrow is going to be cold. But that doesn't mean anything. We get up and get out because why? We think there's benefit here. Not because we just feel like it's duty. So this we is better than me is because it helps us pursue Jesus together when we do it together, right? It helps us pursue Jesus better because we do it together. I'll say it right eventually. So this week, I want to push it a little bit further. This may be a conversation that you get a little uncomfortable with this morning. I thought about taking the offering before I get into this because you may just walk out in just a second. But let me talk to you for just a second. Permit me. Just let's okay. All shame aside, no judgment here. Let's just talk and make this thing a little bit more uncomfortable when it comes to we versus me. Sue and I crashed into bed late one night this past week. We have some routines we've fallen into just like you, so don't laugh at my routines. You got routines too. And And I'm not the pastor that says I never watch TV like I do. I turn on the TV. Oftentimes we turn it on to watch an episode of Friends as we're falling to sleep. We don't even make it. I don't make it 30 seconds in. My wife will tell you I fall asleep in about 10 seconds. Once the TV is on, the timer's set. I don't know why, it's just what I do. I'm tired, I guess. I fall asleep. But as I'm falling asleep this week, one night, I hear a phrase on TV, and I'm not sure what we were watching, but here it is. I heard this phrase before I could finally drift off. I heard this said, "Follow your heart." Okay. Now, for me, you have pet peeves, right? Like, are there things that bother you? Like, we should probably take a list. I'd love to know what some of yours are. But this is like, I have things like phrases, and this phrase like bothers me. This is one of those things that gets my blood pressure up a little bit. And I do that thing that I do because this is the way I'm wired. And my wife tries to ignore me because she's, she can't do anything now. She married me. But I just do this. I start asking questions. Like, what do you mean you follow your heart? Like, what are you talking about? Like, how does a person follow a heart? Like does the heart think for itself? Does the heart get to make decisions for itself? I just start thinking like that. Well, my wife, of course, pretends like now she's asleep super fast because she didn't want to talk about this stuff. She's like, why? Once again. And so I just have to kind of squish my mind. But eventually I do what all good philosophy people do today. Actually, what all good adults do today. I finally, the next day, get up, and what do? I Google, how do you follow your heart? Because now I'm really interested. Like, I'm on it, right? Let me put the answer on the screen. No lie, I Googled this, and this is verbatim. This is what came up on my computer screen. Follow your heart is usually a phrase used as a way to advise people to simply do what they feel is right for them. It means follow your dreams, fulfill your desires, live your passion. Now, I actually love that. Put that definition, leave that up for just a second. I love that definition because I think it's honest. I think at least Google was being honest with me. I happen to think that the first part of that definition is very correct for what most people mean. I also think the way they define it at the end about following your dreams, your desires, your passion, I don't think those things actually go with the first part. I think it's a discontinuity in that statement. But I do like the statement overall. I think it's honest. I think this is what most of us mean. And listen, before we go any further, Kent, let's just say something right now. We've all used this phrase. I've used this phrase. I've used this phrase in talking. Maybe I used it with you. If I did, I'm real sorry because I probably didn't mean what I thought I was saying at times. I have used it. I don't think people mean ill when they use this phrase, but here's the problem. When you use this phrase, follow your heart, it presumes something that I have trouble with. Like, how do I know that I can trust my heart? Here's one better. How do I know that I can trust your heart? How do I know that I can actually believe or follow with real certainty whatever is going on in my heart? The statement presumes that my heart has to be okay in that moment. You might feel very comfortable with your heart, but we don't trust other people's hearts. And if we don't trust other people's heart, and if you can watch somebody else follow their heart and you can see they're about to make a mistake, then how do you know you can trust your heart? And that following your heart isn't going to cause you the same mistake. Who determines whose heart is worth following? What if we followed Hitler's heart? Extreme, I get it. That's an extreme illustration. I wanted to kind of knock you off your rocker this morning, but who's to say that we shouldn't have followed his heart? You say, well, that's just obnoxious. Like, Cecil, that's so obvious. Is it? Because it wasn't obvious to him. So, whose heart do we trust? And how do we know when our heart might be directing us in a way that we shouldn't go? Look, whether you follow Jesus this morning, whether you're still just trying to figure out who Jesus is, or maybe you're getting closer and closer, no matter where you're at in this thing, I don't even think you have to be a believer for this statement to really cause you problems. This statement causes everybody problems, I think. How do you trust your heart? How do you know whose heart to trust? The word for heart in the scriptures cardia is a word that was used like over 300 times. It's where we get the phrase or the word cardiologist. They would use this word as kind of an all-encompassing word. It represented this place in us, this seat of emotions, this hub where all of our emotions and our desires kind of resided, where our feelings were. I don't think anybody's trying to be self-centered necessarily. I don't think people are trying to speak ill or to mislead anybody when they say follow your heart. But it's a bad phrase. It's a bad phrase, because if we followed our hearts, right? Okay, let me say it this way. If I followed my heart in traffic every week, yeah. See, you already know me. Like you trust what I just said is true. Like I am ashamed. I'm ashamed to tell you the number of times I can get in traffic and my spirituality can just fall off the chart. My salvation, I left it at the house. I mean, I start thinking things in traffic that nobody should think, right? I mean, I'm committed to driving bad cars because I'm thinking one day I might just run somebody off. Like, I don't want to wreck a good car, right? Like, that's my heart. That's the one I'm willing to tell you. What are you not willing to say? Are we being honest about trusting our hearts? I've got a friend who, back when he was in college out in California, he liked to go out on the beach and do street witnessing or witnessing wherever he was. But he really liked the beach. And so he'd go walk the beaches and just talk to people. He'd talk to young surfers, dudes that were out just catching waves in the morning. And he was telling me one time, he said he got into this big conversation with a group of guys and they started talking about Jesus, because that's where he was going to direct the conversation towards Jesus. And as they talked about Jesus, he started to kind of talk about right and wrong and how you lived your life and who was really on the throne of your life and why you were motivated to make decisions certain ways. And these guys were really kind of getting into this philosophical conversation like all surfer dudes do. And so when he got to this piece of right and wrong and they started talking about, what does it look like? These guys started to push back as he would talk about Jesus, and as he started to hone in on this person, right, that had established right and wrong in the universe, they started to push back. They didn't like that idea. Like, it's more comfortable for me to be able to decide for myself what's right and wrong. Now this buddy of mine, he's an intimidating looking guy. So what he did next, I don't recommend unless you were an intimidating person and maybe you can handle this. But he decided the conversation was going nowhere. So he walked over, picked up one of the surfboards, and started to walk off with it. Well, surfer dudes don't let go of their surfboards, okay? And these guys get upset. Like, they're beside them. They can't believe that this new friend they just made, they're talking, they're having a good conversation. All of a sudden, he just walks over and takes the surfboard and starts to walk off. They can't imagine what he's thinking. And he turns around and begins to elaborate. But wait a minute. You just said that everybody needs to be able to decide what's right and wrong for themselves, that everybody can follow their heart, if you will, that everybody can make those decisions based on what they want in life. They didn't have an argument for that. The heart is not always the best indicator for what's best for us, right? At the core of who we are, listen, at the core of who we are born consumers. We're born centered on ourselves. We are born consumers. That's who we are. In our broken state in this life, we are born consumers. And write this down. Our natural drive, our tendency is that our hearts is to consume more than we contribute in life. That's just the natural tendency. Our natural tendency is going to be that we consume more than we contribute. It's what we want. It's what we're driven to do. Listen, we know we shouldn't be this way. Like, we're smart enough. People admit this now. We get it. We can see the dangers of living that way, but we can't get away from it. The idea that we would follow our hearts is deeply flawed because our hearts are deeply flawed. We are consumers by nature. It's how we're born. We're driven so that our desires control us, right? So if we desire more stuff, we want more stuff, we think it's going to make us happier. If we desire comfort in life, right, then we're going to push to achieve the things, to live in the places, to go where we want to go. It's so that we are comfortable. We're made happy in those circumstances. We're driven, our desires are to consume more than contribute. So how do we answer that? How is it that we can be different? There's this great thing in the scriptures. The writers of the scriptures oftentimes don't sugarcoat anything. In fact, to the point that they'll say things that if you take the time to really investigate, they're saying the very things that we think on a daily basis. And I think they illustrate this idea well. That we are consumers, that our days, our emotions, if we let our desires and our emotions control everything, we're going to have ups and downs. And it's not always good to let our desires, our heart, drive things. Have you ever had one of these days? Psalm 138, I wrote this, I put it in your flyer from the New Living Translation because I like the way it comes out here. Psalm 138, look what the psalmist says. I give you thanks, O Lord, with all my heart. I will sing your praises before the gods. I bow before your holy temple as I worship. I praise your name for your unfailing love and faithfulness. For your promises are backed by all the honor of your name. As soon as I pray, you answer me. You encourage me by giving me strength. Isn't that great? Anybody have that day this past week? That was a rough week? Yeah, okay, good. Somebody. Look, haven't you had one of those days where it just kind of feels like everything's going your way? Like you just think God is sitting right next to you. Like you can almost, it's like you talk to him and you can almost hear him audibly back, right? Like you just, it feels like life is going well. Like you can conquer anything that's coming at you on that day. I've had those days. The problem is a lot of times those days are immediately followed by this. Look at Psalm 69, verse 3. I'm exhausted from crying for help. My throat is parched. My eyes are swollen with weeping. Anybody, your eyes like puff up when you cry? We call it ugly cry at my house. None of us pretty cry at my house. We all ugly cry, right? Waiting for my God to help me. Like all of it. Yesterday you were there, man. It was all roses, God. But today I don't even know where you are. I'm a little stumped here. Verse 4. Those who hate me without cause outnumber the hairs on my head. Is there some drama going on here? I mean, come on. This psalmist, he's just going to blow it up. He's like, God, let me tell you how bad my life is. Many enemies try to destroy me with lies, demanding that I give back what I didn't steal. Right? Those are the days that we tend to remember, right? Those are the days I think I have a lot of, right? Like God's not real that day for some reason. The struggle is more real than he seems to be. And I'm not sure why, God, but I'm getting the raw deal in this world, right? And I have no idea how to go forward. Following your heart is radically different on those two different days. So if following your heart is the standard, if that's how you're going to live, you got to know that it's going to be radically different on both of those days. And the question is, should it be? How do we keep our emotions from influencing our actions in such a way that, listen to me, we can wreck our lives before we even know it, right? If you follow your hearts, you're more at risk to wrecking your life, to that destruction, to leading you down a path that might get you in trouble. Because listen to me, even on your best day, have you ever done this? Have you tried to do something to make the best day even better? And it was a bad thing? Right? I'm convinced nobody sets out in life to become a drug addict. Right? Like let's just be honest. People don't take drugs because they make them feel bad. If you've ever experienced taking any kind of illegal substance, you don't take it because it makes you feel worse. You take it because for a moment in time it makes you feel better. And so even on your best day, you may still want something better. And what do? You turn to something outside of yourself that's not healthy. It's destructive. So the heart can't be trusted. How do we become contributors, though? How do we turn the tide here? I love John's account of Jesus' life. In John chapter 4, he's telling this story. Jesus has been teaching, and he's decided that the Pharisees, in fact, the scriptures say, John writes it, he goes, the Pharisees were on him. They weren't listening. They weren't paying attention. They didn't like his teaching. They were mad at him. So Jesus says, I'm going to go somewhere else. He's down in Judea, and he's going to go up to Galilee. Now, I think we have a map here, and I don't know if this is going to be big enough for you to see, but hopefully you can see on the screen that Judea is there on the south, the bottom part of the map, and he's going to go up to Galilee, which is up top of the map, up top of the page, in the north. In the shortest distance for him to go is he's going to go through this land called Samaria. See, it's right between the two. In fact, if you can see enough, the roads there, there's a little town called Sychar, and it's right in the middle of Samaria. Now here's the background. Samaria is a place where God's people, right, some of his people, some of the nation of Israel, started to intermarry with local people. Now, we talk about this a lot, and I want to keep reminding you, what I'm about to say, it has nothing to do with ethnicity. God did not say, only Jews should marry Jews, so I don't want you to marry anybody else. What he said was, I want you to marry people. You stay in a certain group of people for the sake of not mixing your faith, not getting confused. At this time, the only people of God was the nation of Israel. And so when they started to intermarry other people, what they did is they polluted their beliefs. They allowed bad ideas, bad theology to be combined with theirs. Because you know, and I know, that whoever you marry, right, is going to influence your daily living. Or am I correct? Don't say amen. Keep it to yourself, right? I don't want to make it any more uncomfortable than it is. Whoever you marry is going to influence your daily living. So their beliefs matter, right? These people had intermarried. So for Jesus to go through Samaria was to do what a good rabbi would never do, was to walk among people who were considered unclean. The rabbis of the day would have gone way out of the way. They would have walked around Samaria and up to Galilee. But you're talking dangerous routes. You're talking dusty roads, right? You're talking all kinds of things that might go wrong. So Jesus took the shortcut. But no other rabbi would have done it. When he gets into Sychar, he's tired, he's hungry. It even says he's thirsty because they stop at a well. The disciples decide, in fact, he sends them on into town to go get some food. And while Jesus is sitting at the well, he starts talking to a woman. This, again, is the second thing in the story a good rabbi would have not done. He would not have given this woman the time of day. On top of everything else, she would be considered unclean. Well, he has this lengthy conversation. In fact, it goes on for so long that the disciples come back with Whataburger because Whataburger is God's food, and we all know this. He comes back with the burgers. The disciples come up, and what do? Hey, Jesus, it's time to eat. They're amazed that he's talking to this gal. In fact, most theologians will speculate, he probably sent them on into town so they wouldn't get in the way. He knew this conversation was coming, and he wanted it to be a good conversation with this gal. But they come back, well, they immediately decide it's time. Like this is just normal. He's got to be hungry. We're all exhausted. We were thirsty. We've been walking all this way. It's hot outside. It is time to eat. Our bodies need to consume some food. Now, what would happen starts to blow their minds. Verse 31 of John chapter 4. Meanwhile, the disciples are urging him. In other words, they're not just saying, hey, come on. They're getting on him. They keep saying, hey, Mark, you go tell him this time. I went last time. Send John. I don't want to go. I've already told him. Okay, we'll send somebody else. It's time to eat. Rabbi, eat. But he said to them, look what he says. I have food to eat that you do not know about. And this is great. Watch this. So the disciples said to one another, has anyone bought us something to eat? Like, why did he send us into town? Why couldn't we have gotten it off to somebody else? Who fed him? The food truck came by, and all of a sudden he's got something to eat. He didn't tell us that he had food. I love these guys. I love these guys because I think they're just like me. I think I would have done the exact same thing. I think I would have, they traveled with him. They talked to him all the time. They heard his teaching, and they still are going, huh? Like they don't get what he's saying. I think that's me. I have food to eat that you don't know about. In my head, Peter's going, I told you guys we were taking too long. I told you guys we went to the wrong bakery, right? I told you John Mark didn't have to have his gluten-free bread. We had to go halfway across town to get this stuff. I hear these guys having this conversation. I love it. Luke's like, look, we went out and what happened? Somebody else fed Jesus. Now we're in trouble. We're supposed to take care of the rabbi. We didn't do it. I think Jesus knows these guys well enough. He's going, okay, hold on. I said it. Now let me expand on it. Verse 34. Jesus says to them, my food, my sustenance, the thing that drives me, the thing that gives me life, the thing that satisfies my existence, my soul, is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. Now the disciples are starting to get it a little bit, huh? When they hear this verse, what they probably would have thought, their minds would have probably gone back to an old passage from the Torah, from the Old Covenant. Because Jesus says, my life, what drives me, my food is to do the will of him who sent me. And there was this passage in Deuteronomy where Moses is talking to the people, and as he's talking to them, he's explaining, look, God's been taking care of you. He led you out of Egypt. He led you out of slavery. You've been wandering around the desert, but he's been taking care of you while you've been wandering around the desert. Deuteronomy 8, verse 3, he says, and he humbled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna. So manna is this crusty bread-like substance that would form on the ground while the children of Israel were wandering around the desert. And this is how, because they didn't have time to grow crops. They didn't have time to farm land. They didn't have time to ranch. So God would take care of them with these miraculous feats. And he says, this is what God was doing. He was humbling you. He was teaching you. And then look what it says. That he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone. See, when Jesus says, I have bread you don't know about, they probably thought about this for a second. All of a sudden, it's kind of starting to come together, right? On the worst day when you feel like God's abandoned you, like life's not working, it's not going the way you want it to, when your desires are not being fulfilled, Jesus is referencing this time where he says, look, they were wandering in the desert and God still took care of them. That's what he does for his people. That's why Jesus says, my food is to do the will of him who sent me. Yeah, my body's hungry. Yeah, it's lunchtime. I get it. Yeah, we haven't eaten in a while. Yeah, I might miss this meal for a period of time. Eating is not bad, right? Heaven help all of us if eating's bad, right? I know none of us miss meals, but eating's not bad. He's not trying to say stop eating. He's just saying you don't have to consume like you think you do. You don't have to let being a consumer consume your life. Jesus didn't want to miss this opportunity. He wanted to be able to talk to this woman. You ever been in a situation like that? Like you get in a conversation, let's say with just an old friend, you're just catching up, and you talk for hours before you realize that maybe you missed lunch or something, or you missed dinner, right? Because why? Because you were so invested in it. Consuming anything else just kind of slips your mind. Jesus says, I need you to understand that being a consumer doesn't have to be the driving force of your life. Sex a good thing? Yeah, it's a good thing, but it doesn't have to consume your life, right? Food a good thing? Yeah, it's a great thing, but it doesn't have to consume your life. Drink a good thing? Entertainment a good thing? Money a good thing? Can I make it more uncomfortable? Family a good thing? Yeah, family's a great thing. But you know what we wrestle with up here, maybe more than some of those others? Making our kids the center of our world. Parents, sometimes we're consumers and we're consuming our kids. We're consuming our kids' lives. We're making them the center of everything we do. Life is full of times where we're going to be consumers, but Jesus reminds us we don't have to be just consumers. We can be contributors. Consumption should not be the driving force in our lives. We need to be contributors. I love what Paul says. He kind of highlights this, and I think I put it on the screen. It's not in your flyer this week. There were just too many verses, but look on the screen because I'm going to read this really quickly. Paul starts in Romans 12 as he's talking to this church, and he's trying to talk about what it's like to do life together. He starts using these kinds of phrases. Verse 6, having gifts that differ, like all the church, everybody that goes to church, everybody has differing gifts, right? That differ according to the grace given to us. Like God made you special. That's all he's saying. He said, let's use them. If prophecy, in proportion to your faith, then prophesy, right? Verse 7, if service, then serve others. The one who teaches, his is teaching. The one who exhorts, his is exhortation. The one who contributes, can give generously. The one who leads, lead with zeal. The one who does acts of mercy, do it with cheerfulness. Let your love be genuine. Abhor what is evil. Now watch what he says. Hold fast to what is good. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Here's the answer. Here's the next we statement. We are better than me to promote becoming a spiritual contributor over a spiritual consumer. Life is better together. Why? Because when we do we over me, right, we can hold each other more accountable. We can use our gifts. We can elevate each other. We can encourage each other on the days when another person is down. And we can push each other to what? Be spiritual contributors, not just spiritual consumers. Because this is not going to be popular. We are the church. We have gifts. We cannot, after all has God done for us, we cannot just be consumers. That's not what he wants of his church, right? There's something better. There's something better than the awards that you can get at work. There's something better than the bonuses you may get to purchase the more stuff. There's something better than your kids and all the accolades they're going to get in sports. There's something better than the bigger the family you can have. Listen, none of those are bad things. Jesus just says there's something better. Stop being consumers. Enjoy all of that by being contributors. Let your heart be molded. Let your heart be shaped. Be transformed in your thinking. Care about the spiritual condition of others. Don't just consume life. Journey, I have a picture in my head of the church. We should be people who give more than we receive. Right? That we should serve more than we are served. That we should love more than maybe we've ever been loved. That we should be passionate about reaching others. We should be contributors, not just people who consume, right? That's why life is better together. That's why we keep asking you to investigate community groups or one of our Bible studies. Or even for some of you, just coming to a gathering like this is the beginning of that step because you've never even done this part. Like you've been hurt by other people or maybe other Christians. We all know how interesting Christians can be. And so even going to a gathering like this is your first step. But the question is, are you willing to become a spiritual contributor, not just a consumer? If I were to wrap this phrase, follow your heart, with another one that just really gets under my skin, it's a phrase that's used often in our world. It's church shopping. For the same reason it bothers me, because I think it's the same thing as following your heart. We're not supposed to be consumers. We're contributors. And the question is, are you willing to sacrifice? Because that's what the bottom line is. We're being called to a life of sacrifice, of giving more than we get. Where is God calling you to contribute this week, not just consume? Let me pray for us.